And now, the best 60-ish seconds of your week.
Joe Biden and company have come up with some really bad ideas, but the one that's vying for the worst, and there's a lot of competition for that title, is the proposal to have banks and financial institutions reporting to, guess who? The Internal Revenue Service, the IRS, any account with over $600 in it. All sorts of potentially invasive information that we're not sure how the banks will categorize or hold private. And these are from people not suspected of any wrongdoing, but anybody with over $600 in a bank account. This is an incredible potential invasion of privacy, of individual liberty. Thank God the banks and financial institutions are pushing back, saying largely, A, we can't afford to put together a system that would take that information and keep it private, and B, we believe that it would chase people out of the traditional banking system into all sorts of other arrangements. Another really horrible, bad idea from the Biden administration. And the beat goes on because Joe Biden is telling the American people something that nobody believes, that the gigantic, quote-unquote, infrastructure package that he's proposing isn't going to cost taxpayers anything. How he possibly imagines, even in his current state, that anybody is going to buy that is beyond me. But while it's being said that it's $3.5 trillion, there are economists saying it's more like $5 to $5.5 trillion. This much we know. It's 2,500 pages of gibberish. When you've got a bill that expansive, you know that there's all sorts of stuff tucked in there that nobody really knows what it's all about. The bottom line is this: most Americans, myself included, support spending for real infrastructure. For conservatives like myself, we know that the Constitution of the United States only talks about federal spending for two things: the military, i.e. national defense, and roads. So roads, bridges, highways, even broadband, particularly for someone like myself in Pennsylvania, rural broadband, fall largely into the category of good spending. But in the Biden package, it's only about 10% of the real number. We can dramatically reduce the amount that Congress is proposing and still have something that meets the needs of roads, bridges, highways, broadband, etc. What the Bidens and the Democrats in Congress are proposing is way more than that. It should be killed dead on arrival. And this week in Washington, we heard from the generals, contradicting what Joe Biden has told us about the withdrawal from Afghanistan, basically saying that his entire narrative, where he tried to take credit, political credit, for ending our involvement in Afghanistan, and in so doing, rushing the thing, not properly planning, not strategically executing, and creating a debacle of unparalleled proportion, and a gigantic lie, i.e. that there were no Americans left behind. The testimony was all very consistent this week that Americans were left behind. The generals called it a strategic failure. Those of us not in the chain of command would call it a total failure. And then you had General Milley dancing all over the place when asked about his conversation with the Chinese communists in the wake of the November election last year. Let's see how all that plays out, because somebody isn't telling the truth, and I'm guessing we all know who that is. And here in my home state of Pennsylvania, State Representative Bob Brooks, a good friend of ours and an obvious friend of students, is partnering with some junior high students to propose legislation that would require a half an hour of recess every day for students from K through 12, in addition to a half an hour of lunchtime. Now, for many of us, recess was our favorite subject, but I think we all understand the adult world really treasures quote-unquote downtime at work. Why wouldn't students, and why wouldn't they feel refreshed after a little bit of opportunity to get away from the textbooks, out of the classroom, enjoy fresh air on those good days, and come back ready to learn? Bob Brooks is onto something, I believe. Let's see how that works out. And finally, October is here, the Fall Classic is upon us, and my two teams in Pennsylvania ended their season, as unfortunately they have for so many recent ones. The Phillies, looking very much like they had a shot at the pennant just a week ago, a half a game out, managed to go on a losing streak, while Atlanta went on a tear, a 9-1 run, and they closed out the Phillies season early. And unfortunately, on the western part of the state, the Pittsburgh Pirates managed to lose 100 games. So for most of my Pennsylvania friends, the cry goes up once again, just wait until next year. We're all hoping, because hope really does spring eternal. And for now, that is the best 60-ish seconds of your week.